Welcome back to this next brief introduction on hypertext markup language. So to now we've discussed what coding languages are and where to begin, and here we're going to get into some of the more foundation stuff of hypertext markup language. So let's begin. HTML is the language that is read by a piece of software called the browser, so aka we're using Google Chrome here. The language it's used is tag-based, which we'll see later on, and it's used to add text, images, hyperlinks, and tables to a website. That's pretty much a lot of what HTML is for. What you end up isn't really pretty, but it does get the things onto the website, as we will see. And we'll be looking at into the course of how to add the text, the images, hyperlinks, and so on using HTML. HTML is a tag-based language, and that basically means it uses opening, closing indices like that, or brackets like that. And if you look at them on your keyboard, I haven't got one here to demonstrate. If you have a look on your keyboard here to see where those brackets are, because you'll be using those throughout the course moving forward as you compose your tags. Here are some common ones which are there. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty here too much because I think it'll benefit you more to see it alive and kicking in the flesh, as it were. But essentially you can see here, there's your opening tag where you got HTML, opening and closing brackets there like that. And then inside there you got the start of your HTML document and then the end of your HTML document down there. I'm tell you what, let's get into exactly what we are talking about. I was composing this for you, but I think that's going to be maybe a tad confusing. So what I'm going to do now is switch across to actually putting together a brief blank one for you to take a look at and actually see it being put together. That's going to be more useful for you, I think, than looking at a PowerPoint. So let me just navigate there for you. So what I'm going to do here is right click on that and come down to copy path. That's going to be useful for you in terms of looking at your page. So essentially that is what we've got and not what I expected you to see. Okay. I think what's happened, let me just clear that. That's happened because I did start recording this previously and the postman came to the door and it messed up the recording. So I'm starting again. So as I'm starting again, I'm going to start again and knock that back to blank. And I'm also going to get rid of that one up there for you. So we're going to focus on this. I will talk about when we do an actual tutorial on putting this together, how we get the folder in and how we get that file in. For now, I just wanted to sit back and relax while we go through how we start an HTML document. We are using VS Code here, and over here we have got up the a blank HTML file called HTML2. So we're essentially looking at this through the browser window. There is nothing there because there is nothing in the document, no coding, no indication for the browser to interpret. So it's just put it up there, even just says the title of the file up there as well, because there is nothing else for it to put in. So let's give it something to do. Now I'm going to put in what we call the boilerplate, the HTML boilerplate. Now the HTML boilerplate essentially, if I just pull this back up, we've gone into that slightly down here. Why is it called the boilerplate? Well, essentially, back in the old days, printers used a metal placeholder bars to put in letters. Remember the old letters they put in before my time and probably before your time? So they put these letters in, which they'd put ink over the page on the top, and then voila, they would have print on the page, and it became a template because they could do hundreds of literally copies of this using the printing press. That was their template. Now printers called that the template, and they realized that something that looked similar to something else they'd seen. When builders were building buildings and they put a boiler in, they'd stick a plate on there that identified who the builder was, and that became known as the boilerplate. So if anything went wrong with the boiler, oh, is there a boilerplate on there? Oh yeah, that belongs to this company, we'll give them a call. But how that translated to here was because of what the printer had with their block of letters in, kind of resembled roughly what was on the boiler. the boilerplate. They called it the boilerplate. So their template is the boilerplate. And that has kind of crystallized, kind of distilled, kind of crystallized into precipitated, I'm a chemist here, into coding. So we called it the boilerplate, and that's why we call it the boilerplate. And I should really put a picture of what I mean in there, but I haven't found one that I believe that can be used copyright free. So I'm going to exit out of that, and I'm just sparing you all this lot, by the way, because I believe I could go through that, but it's going to make more sense to come over here and continue. So let's put this famous said boilerplate code in. So I'm typing HTML, and the code. Now, what's that doing? Well, the editor is starting to preempt what you're going to do. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select HTML. Oops. That one. HTML. And I'm going to come down to number 5. So I've used the arrow key to come down to that, and I'm hitting enter. And that gives me, voila, all of this code it has now put in. I'm going to explain some of this, but not all of it, because a lot of it you don't really necessarily need to know at this point in time. In fact, I'm going to delete out of here what we don't need to worry about. So we're not going over that lot at this moment in time. I'm just going to be talking about this. Starting from the top and move down, what does this mean? First and foremost, please let me clarify. Do not try to learn that. Understand it, yes, but do not go around in parrot fashion, writing it down, learning it, because there's no need to. Okay, you can put it up like that, or if you have to copy and paste it from somewhere, you can copy and paste it into Notepad if that is what you're using. There's no way to generate it automatically in Notepad like there is here, so you may have to copy and paste it in there. But do not, under any circumstances, try to learn it parrot fashion to type it out. There is no need. What you do need to do is understand what it means, which we're going to be looking at now. So if I can draw your attention firstly to the basic code, I am going to refresh that here. I'm going to copy and save. So I'm going to save that. I've just done a Control and S, and I'm also going to show you here and go save here too. And over here, I'm going to refresh. Now you can see that's gone from the title to called document. So that's the only change that's happened here. That's the only difference to that document that code has made so far. How and why? Stay with me. Let's go to the top first, and we will see it says document type, HTML. That piece of code there is telling the website, the browser, that it is a HTML document that it's reading. The browser now knows it's reading HTML. You might think at this stage, what else could it be reading? Oh, there's other options. Yeah, there are a lot of other options, which is why we've put HTML in here to say this is a HTML document. What other options there are is not for your concern here. Let's keep on the course rather than diverting. HTML is what we are using. Next stage beyond that, you might think, is okay, we are looking at the HTML document, but what language is it in? There are people all over the world looking at various websites who speak various different languages, and their languages look a lot different to ours. They maybe use the letters of the alphabet, but they look and appear different, or they even use Chinese characters, as you might find in Chinese, Japanese, Mandarin, and so on. The browser has to cater for all of those. We'll get to how it does that in a minute. But the first stage of that is knowing what language it is in. The second stage beyond that is the character set. Because where I have said that we could be using the letters of the alphabet or all the weird cyrillics, that is decided by the character set within the browser. In which case we are using UTF-8. That's what we're using. That is not for you to get tied up in at the moment. That's not for you to take too much attention to. Just be aware that that is what that is for. You're going to be saying to me now, oh, but Al, you've just skipped something. Yes, indeed, I have. That is the opening tag to the head of the web page. So that is essentially this part up here before the browser gets into the main meat of the site it is looking at. So essentially everything with the head will contain the technical end. We're in English here. It's a HTML document. Oh, let's go back. It's HTML document. It's in English, and we're using this set of characters. Yes. So from building that template point of view, we're telling the printer that's a good analogy actually. We're telling the printer it's going to be in English, and it's a HTML document, and we are putting in these particular characters. So that is the start of the head, and after we've put in the title. Okay, now down to the title. So you can see the title now contains a word in. The word is document. And conversely, strangely enough, if you come over here after we hit save, from putting the template in, it put the word document in up there too. So that is the title of it. That is by default what it's going to put in there. By default, it basically means what the computer is going to do until you tell it to do otherwise. That's where the term default comes in ICT. It will do this until you tell me otherwise. In this case, it has called this document, well, document. And there is the start of the title of the tab. There is the finish of the title of the tab. And needless to say, that is the tab up there. We can put a whole range of tabs in if we want to. These are all tabs, and whatever appears in there will appear up there. Okay, Al, you said it, now prove it. Right, so let's take out document and let's put in Alistair's website. There we are. You can type in whatever you want if you're following me through. Straight away from that, you're going to see that that document now has got a little red spot up at the top beside the file name, with the X if you want to close it down, of course. But what that says now is that is not saved. What does that mean? Well, if I come across here and click on the refresh button, that isn't going to change anything. Okay. It's only when I come over here and go to file and then save, or control and save if you're using your keyboard, pardon me, you will then come over here and that change is going to be now committed, and it is now called Alistair's website. So we have now given our web page a name. So what we have told the browser from the point of view of everything in the head, that this is a HTML document. This is in English. It is using this set of characters, and it is called Alistair's website. That is now what HTML has essentially told the browser, and that is what it is showing. But there is nothing else. We have got it between the start of the head and the close of the head. So just very briefly in HTML, we said it's made up of tags, didn't we? So we've got the opening tag there for the head, the closing tag there. More importantly, the opening tag for title, which tells the browser where the title begins, and the closing tag. If any of these are missing, let's take this out and then save. We are going to have problems. It now is put it in, but it doesn't really quite know what you've done. In fact, if you take out title, that's going to confuse it big time. In fact, I've not actually tried this before, so we're just going to see what it does. Yeah, so it's put it in at text. Doesn't really know what to do with it. It's put it in at text. So I'm going to basically show you a couple of things here which will help. Let me just put that back in. There we are. And it's put it in there. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick bit of jiggery pokery. I'm highlighting that by holding down the left-hand mouse button. Hit X to cut. Control V. What? Strange. Good. Come back up here. Click it in. And then paste. And then all is good with the world again. And let's put it back up there. So what we've got there is stuff for the head. Now, very briefly, because we're talking about HTML tags, I'm going to show you very briefly exactly how they work to give you some flavor before we go into the main meat of it. So I'm going to put a title in the top of that main body. So let me firstly start off. There's the body. There's the body opening tag there. It says body in those brackets. And then you got body close. So what does that mean? The browser's now looking at this white area down here. It's now concerned with anything in here. So anything within those two tags will now appear here. Let's see what we mean by that. So if I'm now going to put in another tag, an opening tag, and I'm going to put in H1, that just means heading. And it knows I'm going to put in a tag because it's put the closing tag in for me. So anything I put within there Well, let's see. This is, I tell you what, hello world, because we always begin with hello world when we learn something new. And I'm going to go for S, Control and S to save it, or come up here, File and save it. And if I come back over here and refresh, you'll see it's now put a heading in at the top. So that is what HTML does. It puts text in, it'll put images into that, it'll put hyperlinks into that, which if you click onto another website, that is what it does. All I'm going to do here before we conclude this brief video is I'm going to put a little bit of writing underneath that to again show you what we are talking about. So I've come to the end of H1, the closing tag, and I'm going to now put in another tag, and it's the simple P. P for paragraph, that's all P is. Puts a different paragraph in. Welcome to my website. How are you today? Now again, if I come over here and refresh that, nothing is going to happen because I need to change here for it to show here. I'll come over here and go to File and Save, and then come over here. You'll see now it has put some text in there. Now this is very basic HTML, and the reason I've done this here is to introduce you firstly to the boilerplate or the code here. B, to tell you what it means and introduce you to what it means so you understand that part. And B, to give you an idea and a flavour of how it works and how we begin working with it. So what I'm going to be doing going forward from here is actually putting together a site and to give you a flavour of that while we're here. As they say often in Blue Peter, here is one I did earlier. So if I come across here, again, it is nothing too pretty. I'm going to open up another tab and I'm going to paste that in here. You can see a flavour of what we have here. And this is what we're going to be looking at reproducing going into the course. So here you've got your header that we had over here where we put in the Alistair's website. Yeah, we put down hello world, sorry. So you can see here the hello world, well that's here. And we've also got an image we put in of the moon, typical of me, eh? We're putting a couple of horizontal lines and we've put in some bullet points and we've put in some hyperlinks and we've put a button in. Do not worry about the button. I've just put that into play. We're not putting buttons into the sites here because there's no point. While it is a physical button and we can physically click on it, it is not going to do anything, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We need a thing called JavaScript for that. So when we click on it, the browser needs to know what it's supposed to do next. That isn't the job of HTML to tell it that. That isn't the job of CSS to tell it that. That is the job of JavaScript to tell it that. And we are not doing JavaScript yet. So in the nicest possible way, I am going to throw that piece of code out from here. Because for now, we don't need it. Anyway, guys, I hope that's not been too heavy for you. I hope that's given you a brief introduction to HTML and what it does and what the tags are, how the tags are used. What we're going to be doing now is applying some of this and developing something a bit like that and see if we can build our first functional web page. Hope to see you in the next lesson, or shall I say look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Thank you.